What I'd like to do is actually just go around quickly and have each of the panelists introduce themselves, just so our audience knows who you are, what it is that you do, and maybe what's brought you to the panel today. Can I start here and we'll just go around?
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me, Kigali. My name is Chris McClay. I'm based in Kenya, in Nairobi. I work for a tech startup called Link. Link is focused on connecting blue-collar professionals, that's everything from plumbers to carpenters and manicurists, to jobs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Or should I say good afternoon, Africa?
Yes.
Hungry continent. A place where food should be produced, but very hungry. My name's Dr. Tamara Kaunda from Zambia. I'm the CEO of Billionaire Farmer Agri Solution. We are looking forward to farming Africa out of poverty. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashish J. Thacker. I'm an African entrepreneur doing business across 25 African countries, focused on technology, financial services, and energy. It's great to be back home. Thank you.
My name is Clément Ouageneza. I work with Andela. We enable companies to build high-performing technology and software development team by investing in Africa's most brilliant software developers. We've been doing this in 3 countries now, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and we are going to start in Rwanda. I'm the country director for Rwanda. Our ambition is to develop and employ at least 500 software developers in Rwanda within the next 5 years.
Thank you, Clement.
Good afternoon. My name is Tapera Muzira. I'm coming from the Human Capital Skills and Youth Development within the Africa Development Bank. My role in the bank is to coordinate the team that's responsible for implementing what we call the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy, where we're trying to support the creation of 25 million jobs for youth in Africa, and we're trying to improve the lives of at least 50 million young people. I'm here today because Youth Connect is also one of the flagships that we support, but I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Well, maybe we'll start with you, Tapera. It's easy to conclude that no matter how many plans people have, there are not enough jobs for young Africans, and we're all trying to figure out what the solutions to that are going to be. The bank has announced a relatively ambitious plan, so can you tell us a little bit about that? And what I'd really like to ask is, how does that big plan translate for what young people can actually expect in terms of opportunity?
Right. The challenge we have in Africa is twofold from the way we look at it. One is we need more entrepreneurs because the private sector we have in Africa is relatively small and is not growing fast enough and big enough to be able to create jobs for every young person entering the labor market. So in very simple terms, we need more entrepreneurs. And because we need more entrepreneurs, we need to support entrepreneurship in Africa. And within the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy, we have an innovation component that is supporting entrepreneurs in Africa. Apart from that, within the bank itself, last year, if you look at our annual report, the bank spent about $9 billion across 5 priority areas. So the bank has got Feed Africa, which is about agriculture, so I'm happy you are here. It's got also Industrialize Africa. It's got also what we call improving the lives of people in Africa. It is within that where we have the human capital strategy and we have the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy. So what we're trying to do is we are integrating across the bank operations to make sure that we maximize the employment income of all the financial operations of the bank. And by doing that, we believe we are going to create a massive amount of opportunities for young people across the various value chains where the bank is putting in its finances. And that should allow young people to get in, to get access to opportunities, to get access to financing through the various partners that we are working with. But this is just what the bank is doing. And this issue, I think, requires a multi-facet of different partners, different solutions. So we want to also broker those solutions and bring partners together in Africa to be able to solve this issue. So that's what we're doing at the bank.
Well, one person who's observed and seen the efforts of the bank has been you, Ashish. And so if you can build off that and reflect on what's the role the bank as an institution plays in the continent, and I think building off the comments of needing to grow the private sector and grow investment, I think what's needed now? Because I think a lot of these are solutions we've been talking about and people have been trying. What's your answer to that?
Thank you. I was saying earlier that, almost our hands and legs are feeling numb and our jaws are hurting. It's time we start getting things done, right? And I'm very happy to see that a lot of our governments and institutions, such as the Africa Development Bank, have switched gears to get into that execution mode. My view is that we need to think about partnerships more broadly in terms of more collaboration between the public sector, the private sector, and the development communities, but for solutions which are relevant for our youth on our continent, not solutions which are designed in boardrooms in a different part of the world completely, not even in our continent, that tell us how to get things done. And I think our hashtag says it all, which is Africa Starts With Me, and I think it needs to be that we don't only have a voice, but we need to kind of utilize it in the right way. So when I think about an ecosystem, I think about several things. The government policies need to be in line, and this means several things, from incentivizing the informal sector to become a part of the formal sector. So whatever type of incentives, be it tax or other. I think when it comes to incentivizing innovation, right, and really incentivizing entrepreneurs to become more innovative, but putting in policies to make sure that IP law is protecting their innovations when they do come up. So having the right policies is critical. One big challenge that I faced 22 years ago and constantly everybody faces is the access to capital. And access to capital is a very crucial one. And this comes in several forms as well. I mean, you're thinking about debt from banks. Banks are not lending enough to businesses. That's a fact. But then the argument to that is the lack of data. So we need to solve that and not complain about it. We need more incentives around angel investing and venture capital investing, etc. So that starts happening in a practical way, be it government seeded, and then the bank playing a key role, which it's keen to. And then when you think about informal education, such as mentorship, is critical. And then you need to go back to the basics, which is we need affordable, high-speed, quality, reliable internet for all, literally. But at the same time, we need very high quality and very affordable smartphones, which will allow all our applications that we're developing to go on there and to create that ecosystem effect that we're hoping to create. So I think it's a matter of putting all this together, because in isolation, a lot of these things are happening. And this is where I'm very excited about the bank's initiative as well of Jobs for Youth for Africa, because it's trying to bring all that together and ensure that we implement it in the right way, with the right mindset.
Well, we're going to come back to some of the comments around making technology accessible, but I saw you nodding your head vigorously as Ashish was talking. I think it's probably worth telling the story of how you got the startup capital for your organization and for your business. And then you are a leader for young people who see agriculture as a career. And I think that that's an important story to tell, if you can tell us why you picked agriculture over medicine.
Okay, thank you. Well, um, I was born in Chinsali, very far from Lusaka. It's about 1,000 kilometers from Lusaka. And I grew up at the farm with my mom and dad. They were farming, they could produce, sell, and they managed to take us to school. So when I went to school, I finished my secondary, went to university in China. I was awarded the scholarship to study medicine. I love medicine, I must say, and what prompted me to go into medicine was that I didn't want people to lose lives. So when I went to China for 6 years, came back to the country, I wanted to start work. Then I went to our biggest institution, UTH. When I entered the hospital, it was a sad scenery that I saw. You know, people were sick and people were dying, you know. And these diseases were not diseases that, you know, that people should be getting sick of. They're all just as a result of poverty. Then I said to myself, if I start work now, I'm just going to join everybody else and, you know, just follow the straight road. So what can I do about this situation that I see people dying because of poverty, something that we can do and stop? So when I went home, I, you know, sat with my husband now. Yeah, we're both medical doctors, but we didn't start practicing then. So we thought, what can we do about this situation? So I remember when I was growing up, we did agriculture as a business, and it saved us. So I thought, you know, this is a way out for most families that, you know, that can help them survive. But then how do you let the people know? First of all, if you want to make an idea to the young people or Africans, you must be a leading example. You must do things practically. So I thought if I start practicing now and then tell the young people, can you start agriculture, can you start farming, can you join this chain? Are they going to listen to me? No. Because I have a salary, I'm getting paid, how on earth are they going to know that I'm feeling their pain, the want? So I said, for now, let me not practice, let me start agriculture as a business, then spread the good news to the others. They'll be able to come to me, relate to my business, what I'm doing, then they are going to say, wow, we can also do it. And as it is in Africa, agriculture is perceived just for the old, poor, and people who have failed in life. And agriculture has not been taught to us or shown to us as it is. I mean, this is the billion-dollar sector that has been hidden to us. Had it been portrayed as it had been, Africa could not have been where we are. So I thought to myself, let me do my part and market agriculture. So I started this project with my partners, Billionaire Farm Agri Solution. And the reason why we named it Billionaire Agri Solutions was because we wanted to tell the young people, the people out there, to say there are billions hidden in agriculture. So that's how we started that. And then starting was not easy. Imagine you're from school, you don't have capital, and you have this idea that could work, but you don't have money, which most young people are facing. And you can't go to a bank in my country and say, I want to start farming, can you give me money? Because the lending rates are so high, they're between 35% to 40%. Where are you going to get that? You're just a startup. So we had this vision, they say ideas matter more than money. We just, had these gadgets, the handbags, whatever we had to sell off and start little, and we've just been growing organically. It hasn't been easy, but we've tried. And so far, since the publicity about, me being a medical doctor going into agriculture has led thousands and thousands of farmers to join in. Right now, you can check a page called Small Scale Farmers, Farming as a Business. It has over 300,000 farmers across Africa, and we keep on spreading the word. We started with farming Zambia out of poverty. Now we're going farming Africa out of poverty. It hasn't been easy, but the good news is going a long way. But we have a lot of challenges, but we keep on fighting to see if we can kick poverty out of Africa.
Well, I mean, you talk about it in such a compelling way. There are many people in the audience that I think are trying to get young people to understand the opportunities in agriculture. So if you could say to them, what is the one thing that they could do that would make this easier for you and for other young people that are trying to find careers and jobs in agriculture?
I think, first of all, we need the stakeholders to come on board. I always say we have to make agriculture look sexy. We have to make it attractive. If we want the young people to come on board, you make something attractive. Portray it as it is. You put young, beautiful people, young, handsome people in the fields, working in the agriculture fields. And agriculture is not just about production. There's marketing, there's communication, there's transportation. You portray all that. Make it attractive as it is. We've seen a lot of commercial farmers who are importing food from Europe, from Australia. I mean, that's farming. We see these things happening, but why can't we show that to our young people? We need to use those examples. I've seen many magazines by the UN, FOL, which we talked about last time. I told them, stop portraying agriculture as something that is ugly. Stop putting old people in the village, in the kind of small phone, ugly thing. It makes it, unattractive. We need to change how young people look at agriculture. We have to make it attractive. And also, at the same time, for us to make it attractive, we need to put certain incentives for the young people to go there, because no one wants to, tap into something that is very hard to do. You know how young people are. They want fast money. They want, they sell, they, market, and they're driving these nice cars, They want something that, that can work for them, not something that is very hard. But because as we speak right now, agriculture is very difficult to start. For startups, it's very difficult. One, the seed is expensive. The inputs are expensive. The equipment is very expensive. That's why I want to talk to the African Development Bank after this session, because we really need to have a long talk. So we have to make it attractive as it is. We have to make agriculture sexy.
Well, thank you. So, Chris, one of the other, I would say, myths that needs to be either debunked or dug into is that the gig economy is going to solve the African youth unemployment challenge. And you do a lot of work trying to understand how to make online platforms that connect people to jobs actually connect people to jobs and not be one more online platform. So just what are your observations about what is it really going to take if we think about what Ashish has said about the importance of accessible technology? We'll come back to, I think, some of Clement's observations about the disruption and skills that are needed. What is the gig economy that doesn't sound like myth but actually is like the reality?
So when we talk about entrepreneurship in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, we're primarily talking about the informal sector, the gig economy. A large part of that takes place in agriculture, but in a place like Kenya, where 83% of employment is in the gig economy, almost a third of that is in the service sectors. So these are carpenters, these are plumbers, these are manicurists, people who don't have full-time jobs, but move from gig to gig. These people are consistently looking for work. They don't have CVs, they don't have any sort of career identity that moves with them. So what we're focused on at Link is creating a digital career identity which can live through you, through the jobs that you do, that can grow your professional credibility, helping you to move from a gig economy into a genuine career. Now, the challenge with technologies like this are huge. The McKinsey Global Institute estimated that online talent platforms, as they call them, will positively impact 540 million people, adding $2.7 trillion to the global economy by 2025. However, these online digital platforms work well for people who already have stuff. You look at Uber, this is great for people who already have cars. You look at a lot of these American platforms like TaskRabbit or Thumbtack that work well for people with professional qualifications or accreditations, smartphones, access to the internet, and that sort of thing. What we're trying to look at and link is how you can create a technology platform that is inclusive, because a lot of those US or European-based platforms that we seek inspiration from in this market are more likely to be excluding people from that opportunity. So the way we look at things is firstly making sure that the technology itself is not exclusionary. We make sure that people can access using basic phones as well as smartphones. We aim to provide a lot of what we call the entrepreneurship infrastructure that people are otherwise lacking, that otherwise would hinder people accessing these platforms. So this is training on how to use a platform. This is creating things that typically a lot of, if we have like plumbers and carpenters and that sort of thing around here, you know, turning up on time, we make sure that a foundational piece of our infrastructure is a digital assistant that reminds you of when your jobs are due and that sort of thing. And we look at all of the problems that your typical young entrepreneur that finds it incredibly difficult to navigate a gig economy, will help them to piece together those individual jobs into a genuine career.
So before we open up for questions, Clement, we're in Kigali, so I want you to reflect on both your own journey as an entrepreneur in the technology space, and more importantly, one of the things that organizations such as Andela are grappling with is what is the future of skills, whether it's the fourth industrial, whatever buzzwords we want to use, the idea of understanding what are the skills that are going to be required of young people to think about careers of the future.
Thank you. So I started my first company, Axis, in 2005. And it was simple, become a software development company that helps small and medium enterprise leverage technology to improve the way they manage their organizations. So very quickly, like after 2 months, I had completed 2 projects successfully and started to get more and more projects coming in. And my natural reaction to this was, wow, this is cool. If I recruit 2, 3 other software engineers, I'm going to be able to run concurrently 3 projects, and instead of completing 3 projects in 3 months, I'll be completing 9 projects in 3 months. So got excited, used the small amount of money I had done in previous projects to rent an office space. I recruited 2 software engineers, but really competed to get the best I could get. So I was paying them $1,400 each. So to get really some people who will come and get going without requiring my intervention, my training, or anything. Well, we launched our office, and I was happy. Was counting the dollars and seeing everything going to go as perfectly as I imagined. But 6 months down the road, those like around 5 projects that I had secured and everyone was going to work on, none of them had been delivered. We had delays. We had reputation issues already with each of the client because of lack of proper communication, lack of proper project management, and everything. And we were already starting to miss our monthly rental payment and some salary payments. So 8 months down the road, I had closed the office, let everyone go, and went back and started over. What I learned at that moment, or through that journey, early journey in my entrepreneurship, was this job of selling knowledge is extremely hard. It's hard because you need to really grow some kind of a culture within the company that delivers perfectly. And you need to accompany every new person you recruit, so for them to become as high or produce deliverables that are meeting each client's expectation all the time. So what I did next was to start over, and I started by recruiting pre-graduate students who want internship, who are not costing that much, who are learning, and we worked together on few number of projects until they slowly got to acquire the skills not only to manage their own projects, but to deliver their own and their own products. So Axis ended up growing to 15 software engineers and delivering an average of 9 medium-scale projects a year. But it took us 8 years, I think, 8 years to get to this size, which is a really small size for an ambitious software development company. So the question is, how do you scale? How do you become a global company? How do you employ hundreds and hundreds of software developers? And I think and strongly believe this is what Andela got to figure out how to make it work, right? Today, we are employing 700 developers. They're working as remote distributed developers for global technology companies across the world, US, Europe. And we are adding an average of 70 plus developers every month. And the idea starts from a simple realization that brilliance is evenly distributed. If we have brilliant minds out there, and we apply, Ashish was talking about relevant solutions. If we apply relevant development, relevant training, we can get these brilliant people, whether they have software development background or not, we can get them to become world-class software developers in a very short time. And doing this by getting them to learn through employment, therefore they not only acquire the high-end technical skills to become part of the global high-performing technology teams, but also the soft skills, because it requires communication, it requires analytical thinking for you to be part of a really high-performing software development team. And we've been doing this at scale for the last 3.5 years, where we have now 700 developers and planning in Rwanda alone to be adding 500 software developers in the next coming five years. So the ambition here is in the long run to build and empower the next leaders of the software engineering and the next entrepreneurs who will build technology companies in Africa, because not only they will have had this exposure to high-end, high-performing teams, but also will have acquired the leadership required in terms of soft skills for you to learn and to work within teams and to develop teams and to empower other people to become great software developers.
So if we reflect on the bank thinking differently about how to coordinate across itself as an institution, the need for public-private partnerships that think beyond any one sector, and I certainly think that this is a challenge that we know cannot be solved by the private sector alone, by the public sector alone, certainly not by donors and social actors alone, and that it has to think creatively about what it takes for young people to be able to access what they need across a wide variety of sectors and to be able to tell the stories of young people really as the present and the future of the continent. That the gig economy sounds good, but making it work for young people and young entrepreneurs on an everyday basis, it takes more than just what does the CV look like. And certainly, I think your reflection that success in work is often about much more than what qualification you have or what degree, because often these other skills that you learn working alongside others and with others are the key to success, whether it's a software engineering or frankly most other jobs. So I want to open it up for questions so that we don't keep talking at you and see if we're on track, if we've got the topics that have energized you, and if not, you will be entitled to move us in other directions. So I don't know if it's possible to get the lights, and if not, I can manage without. Can I just see if there's any questions? I'm just going to stand up so I can see. Can I see if there's any questions? So there's one there. Are there other questions? Just a show of hands. I'll come to you just now. Hands? Yeah, one there. Two there. Two there. Let's do this. We're going to get those 7 questions asked, and then I'll give the panel an opportunity to answer it. If you have a specific person that you're directing your question to, can you let me know so that I can also direct so we don't have everybody answering all the questions. So I think, where was the first hand? It was here? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan Murwanashyaka. I'm a fresh graduate from University of Rwanda. I have 2 questions for Dr. Tamara from Zambia. Has said that she did nursing, or she is a doctor, but yet he has converted his career in agriculture, and he's become a hero, if I say. She has become a hero, if I say, from where I can consider it is 0, because he had nothing, as he said, and it is where most of our graduates found ourselves. Now, according to me, I hear that she had many challenges because he did not agriculture, but he is going to transform agriculture to a sufficient level. I need her to explain more about us, how we can thrive ourselves if because we have like or similar problems. The second question is how you said that you have if you have a better idea, it can matter than having money. Guess or take a case when you go to a financial institution, then you have a better idea, but they ask you a percentage of a given amount of capital that you require to boost your idea. Then you don't have. Actually, what can you do as a young leader who wanted to make such change, but you get that stack of missing the capital? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take all the questions and we'll come back. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, I think if I can, there's 2 questions here. Yes?
Hello. My name is Inez Armel from Rwanda. I'm with the African Union Youth Volunteer Corps. So my question, general, like for anyone who can answer it is fine. Every time that I hear about the technology, innovation, everything, it's all good. But my question is more about data. All of the things we're doing, data, are not stored in Africa. So like people, the Western country, can do prediction of our own thing before we do it. So what are the government of Africa doing to make sure that this data might stay in Africa with us, for us to know how to use them actually? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw there was one other hand here. Is that right? Was there another question? Yes, there.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Wellington Musyoka. I come from Kenya. Yeah, again, I would like to direct my question from the doctor from Zambia. I think I have a lot of interest in agriculture. Remember, we cannot talk of industrialization. We cannot talk about IT, talking to an hungry community. We have first to feed the community so that we can discuss about the other issues of industrialization and such. So I'm focusing much on the incentivizing the issues of agriculture, as in how can we pull the youth towards agriculture. And I think we have an opportunity as African countries. We can create a network whereby youths from a different country can know what best they can supply to a neighboring country. For instance, I'm not bragging, but I know the sweetest watermelon, or rather the sweet melon, comes from Kenya. I have had one for lunch from Rwanda, and I mean, I don't discredit, but it can't match that one of ours. So what I would request, I would again give credit to Rwanda. I know they can supply a lot of milk. I wouldn't mind if I got a pipeline to Kenya, supplying us with milk, and a lot of trucks bringing in watermelon, mangoes, the apple variety, to Rwanda. So I think to our stakeholders, there is a chance for you to, to encourage the youth towards agriculture, because a group of youth in Kenya told that there is an opportunity to supply watermelon in Egypt or South Africa. I mean, these guys will deliberately focus in agriculture. They will produce and they will supply, they will export. I mean, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there were just 2 more questions here. I think one there.
Je réponds au autorité. Je suis burundais et je suis du corps des jeunes volontaires de l'Union africaine. Et ma question, je l'adresse surtout à celui qui a parlé de développer. Moi aussi, je suis développeur. Et dans mon pays, nous avons une équipe informatique. Et le problème que nous avons, c'est que nous ne trouvons pas le marché d'écoulement de nos produits. Et ma question, c'est de lui demander s'il pourrait nous appuyer sur nos projets, ou si aussi il peut me donner l'occasion de lui parler à l'eau et à l'âge de nos projets. Merci.
I think there's one more here in the front row. I'll end with you, I promise. Yes? Yes, thank you.
My name is Maxwell Ngambaule. I'm sorry, Doctor, because most of the questions are directed to you. My question is also related to you, actually. A study that was done in 2016 about agriculture stated that in Africa, we only use 3% of the land in doing agriculture, of which 3% of that land, only 4% is irrigated. And you were talking about being in organic farming. Organic farming is different from the other types of farming, which can be mechanized farming, inorganic farming. So my question is, how have you been able to deal with the irrigation, first of all, and from your organic farming, have you seen productivity? Like, how is your productivity? Because in Africa, agriculture, in our harvest and yield increases through land increase, not productivity. So I want you to address the question. I'm asking if you, in being organic farming, how is your productivity and how is the irrigation challenge? Thank you.
Thank you. And then we had one last hand here. We're going to do a second round, so I'll be right there. Yes?
My question is about Andela.
Yes?
I have been a software developer for quite some time right now, but I've never been able to secure any job remotely. So I was wondering, what does Andela do about full-time students? Is it okay for a full-time student to actually participate in a fellowship? Is that possible? Because right now I'm doing my master's degree in Carnegie Mellon University, and I would like to actually join Andela. I know the deadline is by 12 October this month. So I was wondering about the possibility or the time feasibility for a full-time student to actually be part of Andela.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by the Commissioner of the AU for Human Resources, Science, and Technology, Professor Sarah. I was told the Commissioner of Youth. And so if you don't mind, we'll have everybody answer the questions and then would welcome remarks from you at the end. Okay. So we have, tomorrow, a number of questions for you. Do you want to take them all on, and then I'll go to the data question after that. Ashish, I'll start with you and then get other voices.
Yeah, food first. Okay. The question is, okay, the number of questions, yeah. So I want to take the idea where I said ideas matter more than money. If you tell me to walk from Lusaka to Kigali, I can do it. but it will take a long time. If you tell me to drive from Lusaka to Kigali, it will take a little bit longer time. If I fly from Lusaka to Kigali, it will take me 2 hours. This is the case of African young entrepreneurs. I said ideas matter more than money because we had this idea and wanted it to work. It didn't matter at what pace we're going to move, but we just wanted to actualize it. So we started with whatever we have, with whatever we had for us to actually put this idea to work. But the question that, of course, most young people ask is, how can we make the process faster? Of course, it has to come with financing. If we had if we were financed then, or if we had, access to financing, affordable financing then, I'm sure this time could have been talking about a different story because we could have moved at a faster rate. Even right now, our growth is not as it should have been because we're very slow. No one is willing to put in money. No one is able to lend me. And I'm not going to take the suicide decision of going to a bank to borrow for 40% interest. So that's what I meant by ideas matter more than money. You have to start with whatever you can because Africa is not user-friendly for young startups. It's hard. It's very difficult. There are certain few young people who are politically connected. It's easier, you're able to access their corruption is there. These things, we cannot run away from it. There are people who are able to access a lot of money that they will not use it for anything. But for genuine startups that just want to have this idea made, it's very difficult. But what I can tell you is that don't let your idea down. Start slowly, grow it slowly. Soon enough, someone is going to recognize it and they can pump in money. And please, don't give up, because if you give up that dream, you're giving up on your country, you're giving up on your people, and you're giving up on Africa. So please, let's make sure that we push our dream. It's hard, it's difficult, but let's save our people. And
then the incentives for agriculture and apparently getting the watermelon route now between our two countries.
Okay. Yeah,
and then irrigation and the question of challenges for organic farming.
Okay, yeah, we talked about this intra-Africa trading. We talked about, these things. This is very important. We can have a product in Zambia that is needed in Angola, but we can't trade. There's not even a proper road between Zambia and Angola. Rwanda will need something that Zambia has, but we can't trade because of those barriers. We're our own enemies. We are killing ourselves. One thing I would like to say is that I think we like to massage poverty. We are massaging poverty because we're not willing to go ahead and trade amongst ourselves. We're not willing to help ourselves. We're not willing to trade ourselves. Kenya has the drip irrigation that Zambia needs, but it's very difficult for us to trade amongst ourselves. Kenya is producing coffee, but would rather take coffee from Europe to Zambia. You get the point. So we need to trade with ourselves. We need to, I don't know why we think we're each other's enemies. I don't know. We have these leaders, they meet at AU, these summits, they're smiling at each other, but they go back home, they don't communicate with each other. So we need that trading. We need that environment. Like someone said, I need to go to Egypt, I should fly to Dubai, Cairo. What's that? I mean, that's insane. We are in the same continent. I should take a flight direct from Lusaka to Cairo. If I need to trade, if I need to go to Ghana, I should be able to take a flight direct from Lusaka to Ghana. I should pass through Rwanda. I mean, that's better. But we are having to buy fuel from Saudi Arabia when Angola produces oil. That's a neighboring country. I mean, what are we doing as Africa? So we need to be friends with ourselves. We need to trade with each other. Food we are exporting, there's, last time we had a summit, young people are exporting to Europe. So how do you feed the Europeans when your people are hungry? We need to think about that. How can you feed the Europeans? Yet when you go there, they say Africa is poverty-stricken. How do we have the face? We cannot start exporting to Europe whilst our people are hungry. Let's feed our people first. Let's make sure our people are hunger-free before we can actually feed other people. Because we feed them, they come back and laugh at us to say, look at them, they are hungry. We have everything we need, but we're not utilizing them. And then at the same time, our governments, I don't know why we don't want to invest in our young people. No country ever thrived without investing in young people. Right now, the ministers, the whatever, these people in these big offices, you're enjoying Facebook, you're enjoying WhatsApp, because other countries invested in their young people. Can you wake up and invest in your young people so that we can see the change in Africa? This issue of wanting to make the decision for us, no police for us without us. We should be in the forefront to make the decisions. Because if today we're able to get the data, the ministers of youth, anybody below 35 years? Can we answer that question? How many among us that have come? Probably one. The rest of them are about 35. So how do you run the Ministry of Youth when you're not a youth? Those are the questions. So we need the young people to be on the deciding table. They should be able to decide what is best for the youth. Because I need data, but an older person thinks that's useless. You get the point. I need cheap data to be able to access information. But if I go to a minister who's 50 years old, he thinks, you can write a letter. You don't need Facebook. These are realities. We should be able to address this if we need to improve lives in Africa. And we have to invest in the young people. Because if we don't invest in the young people, we'll be moving in circles.
Yes. Well,
and then I would like to answer another question on organic farming. I'm not doing organic farming. I don't remember mentioning that. Yeah, we're just we do incorporate some organic matter into our production, but we're not into organic farming. So we are a semi-organic farming project, yes. So our main project is actually we do supply vegetable seedlings. We've managed to penetrate Zimbabwe, Malawi, and others and around the country, and we make sure that even people in the rural areas, they're able to access very good seedlings, and we teach them online or even via phone call, to train them how to, manage those seedlings, and so they can have that production, and they're able to sustain their lives. Of course, drip irrigation is very expensive. This is what I was talking about. Kenya, South Africa, they're producing this drip irrigation, but you have to get all the way from China or Egypt, not Egypt, Lebanon or whatever. That becomes very expensive. And we have these young people who have studied, engineering, water engineering, but no one is willing to invest into them, so they can start these projects of producing drip irrigation, designing drip irrigation for the farm. No one is willing to them. When you don't invest in the young people, they'll be busy looking for the jobs. Even me, if I'm hungry, I would rather go and look for a job than start my own thing, because what am I going to eat? If I don't eat, I'm going to die. So if we make the environment enabling for the young people, indeed, we're going to have a prosperous Africa. But if we don't, we're going to kill our young people like we're killing right now. Thank you.
Well, you're certainly an eloquent spokesperson and passionate about a lot of these issues. If I just build off what you said, because I happen to know Ashish was here at this very convention center in May when the Continental Free Trade Agreement was under consideration, and I think trying to build off that and maybe address the question of data that was asked around keeping our data in Africa for Africa, and your answer to that question.
Sure, thank you. I want to build up on what Dr. Tamara said. I think it's very, very important to pick up on these points. We as Africans and as young people, we are not answerable to anybody but ourselves. And this is why it becomes very, very important that even though our continent is making tremendous progress, as a 15-year-old entrepreneur when I started on the continent 22 years ago, it was much worse than it is today. At least now, we're all singing the African story, right? Which wasn't the case before. We still have a lot to do, but we made good progress so far. In May, to your point, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and a lot of the countries that did not sign were named and shamed and then started signing. So it's slowly happening. But we as entrepreneurs should not wait for that. That is not something that we should sit back and wait for. We should remember that that same law applies to us that applies to others. So the way Dr. Tamara tapped it, and still today does export her seedlings to Zimbabwe and Malawi and other places, even though it should be a lot easier, should be a lot quicker, should be a lot smoother, she's still managing to do it. When I was 19 years old, I had this crazy fascination of becoming an industrialist. I was a tech entrepreneur from the age of 15. I didn't finish high school, and I only started with $5,000 because we were refugees from Rwanda, and then we started from scratch. So at 19, I don't know why, I had this bug that I wanted to be an industrialist. So I set up a corrugated packaging manufacturing plant in East Africa. And when I started that, I was the 12th factory in the country. And the one that was older than me was 7, 8 years old. So we were a complete new entrant. But we worked hard, we pushed it. I remember we got an order from Unilever, and the operator for that machine was sick, had malaria, was in hospital. There's nobody to operate the machine. So I sat at 10 p.m., read the instruction manual for 2 hours, operated the machine from midnight till 7 a.m., and we managed to deliver. 6, 7 years later, that was the #1 plant in the country, and another 6, 7 years later, we were the largest in East and Central Africa. But the infrastructure that I was promised water in that plant in Uganda, the national water didn't come for 7 years. If I didn't dig my own boreholes, I would have still been waiting. So as much as it's the public sector's responsibility, we as the private sector do have a big role to play, and we should use these weaknesses as our advantages as entrepreneurs, that how can we take advantage of this and help and make a difference on our continent. So Inez, you raised a fantastic point about data. I think this is so, so critical. The fact that all of our data is being stored in other places. And I think there's 2 critical things. Firstly, we're utilizing applications that are developed from outside. So even if we get them to store it here, they're still going to have access to our data, right? So we need to create the algorithms and the AI platforms that churn our data, that give us what we need locally. That's the first thing. And I think the second element in this is that we need to get more data centers locally in each country, and it should be a firm policy for every government that there should be local data centers, that we can not only store the data, but then churn it, to your point, and utilize it in the right way, that we can then not predict, but really take advantage of what's going on our continent. Guys, as a continent, we're going to have a bigger population than India and China by 2025. Yet the whole world is dancing about those guys, yet we are the future. So this is our time. We need to take advantage of it, and this is why points like this we need to make into action. Thank you.
And then, Clement, would you mind just responding to the young woman about Andela?
Yeah, actually 2 questions. One guy from Burundi who asks, who has a software developer team, and about ability to work with Andela while you're still at school. So the gentleman from Burundi says we have a software developer team, but we are not getting market. But believe me, if you talk to any technology company out there or any business that's tried to engage into some digital transformation, they say and they cite the biggest challenge as lack of access to developer talent. And that's the biggest gap that technology companies have to grow fast, and that any business that wants to use more technology has today. But unfortunately, you have these many developers that are not finding enough work, and you have work that's not finding enough developers to fill. And that basically highlights a huge problem, which is the way we haven't been adapting very quickly to the pace at which the digital transformation of the world is going and the skills that are required and the kind of demand that's out there for the job market when it comes to software developers. So the biggest problem or the biggest challenge for software developer teams to get job is people who have the job are not trusting that they have enough experience for them to work on critical systems that manage their business. So how do we get to mitigate or to decrease that gap? It's if we were able to allow him, for example, to, before he even starts to selling his skill, to have worked on so much software, to have written so many lines of code that anybody who wants to recruit them or to hire them or to employ their company doesn't doubt any moment that there will be a problem when they are working on their critical solution. And I think that's really how we need to reimagine how we train people, how we develop software developers by really doing it right from the beginning with huge amount of experience. And that's what Andela is doing by directly doing it and very quickly placing you into employment kind of situation so that you not only learn how to code, but you, by the end of the program, you have written so much line of code that nobody would doubt that you can do that. So that's when I talked to him later after, as you asked, we will speak after this, but it's really about how much you are able to do as much work as possible, but also being able to market this much work that you've been doing in the past. When it comes to working while still studying, so our fellowship is a full-time job because again, we get you to become a non-experienced software developer to a world-class software developer, and this is an extremely immersive program that needs your full-time commitment and full-time work. But in your case, you are with CMU and you are already engaged in a very top-notch software engineering program, I would say. So we have also other job opportunities for senior software engineers who actually work with these junior software developers so to make sure that our partners get the right and the best deliverables as possible. So there are still opportunity, but no, you can't combine both at this moment.
Thank you, Clement.
May I just comment on that one? You know, companies in Africa, they're always looking for experienced people. But we don't have people to employ them. Here's a university student, just graduated, and you want 3 years experience. So how do you tackle that? Because, you know, if they don't get an experience from you, where else they're going to get an experience? Because you have this job, you know, the job adverts, I mean, no, you should come with 3 years experience, 5 years experience. I mean, what the hell is that?
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly comment on our own experience as Harambee, is the idea of giving young people other signals to be able to get a first job, because without experience, you can't get experience. And the good news is that even in the last month, between companies like Google and Apple no longer requiring college degrees in entry-level jobs, the government of Rwanda also saying that experience can't be something that excludes you, as I do think a lot of organizations and institutions are really understanding that that's essential.
I think also it should be the AU requirement for every African country that the thing of job experience should be now removed, because most young people, they want to work, but there's that barrier. You're not giving them jobs, but you still require them to have an experience. That should be out.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is, before we get to the reflections from the commissioner, is just to ask either Chris or Tabera if you have any reflections on the round of questions, and then I'd like to bring the commissioner's voice into the conversation.
Well, from the bank side, I think we are excited when we hear that agriculture can be sexy. and that young people should look at it not as agriculture, but as agribusiness. So, and we are investing under our Feed Africa priority. We've made it one of the top priorities of the bank, so I'm excited about that. I'm also excited when you think of 1.2 billion customers, and not the few millions in your country. And this is where we meet again when we talk about Integrate Africa, where we're investing heavily in infrastructure that's connecting these countries. And we need policymakers, you are absolutely right, to come together and open these markets and make Africa a $1.2 billion market to get business going. So I'm very excited about that. And also industrialization is key. So we can get bigger, we can create more jobs, and that's where the Jobs for Youth in Africa also comes in. So we're very excited about that. And we believe in young people. And we are investing in young people. And that's why we've made Jobs for Youth a priority. So thank you very much.
Chris, do you have any?
I'd only just echo what Ashish said about the fact that a lot of the biggest challenges, a lot of the biggest barriers are the biggest opportunities as well. We have agriculture offering more opportunity than anything else. We exist because there is such an opportunity in the broken market around plumbers, around carpenters in the informal sector. See these challenges as opportunities to overcome, and there's huge, huge growth on the other side.
Okay. So, Commissioner, I don't want to have my back to you, so I'm going to come to you. Can we have your reflections on the conversation?
Thank you. Okay. Let's on the mic so that you can.
Okay.
Please, can we give them a round of applause? I am very happy with the passion you spoke with. I'm very happy the way you've dissected governments. You've dissected the AU. You've said a lot of things. I used to be in that shoe. I used to wear that shoe. I used to be like you. So I understand where you're coming from. Now, as a member of the African Union Commission, what do I have to say about this? It is very, very essential for us to know that the African Union Commission is the secretariat of the African Union member states. And in as much as we are the commission, we cannot implement in countries because each country have their autonomy and they have their sovereignty. And it is good for us to have youths like you to be able to sensitize and awaken them from the various lethargy that they are sleeping in so that they can actually do what we want them to do. I heard somebody mentioning there about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that we have to coerce member states to accept. The African Free Movement Protocol, many member states have refused to ratify. If they don't ratify it, there's nothing we can do, apart from conscientizing the way you are doing, awakening the way you are doing. Yes, we are talking about an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own competent and skilled citizens. And our youth bulge is our greatest resource. And if these youth bulge are not given the right competencies and skills, then there's nothing they can do about it. And that means Africa will not move to where we want it to move by 2063. And like the young Nicholas said in the morning session, we need people to execute. It's about execution. It's about our mindset. It's about a paradigm shift from stereotypes to doing what is right. The first thing we did is that this 50-year process, that is the 50-year process of Agenda 2063, was divided into 5 phases of 10 years each. And for this first 10 years, we said education is very, very essential. And this education is not just theoretical education. It's not the classical degrees. Look at you, a medical doctor, well-trained. And you know what? You got me curious. Trained in China. How did you get to China? Good scholarship, good parents were able to sponsor you. But you came back and you look at yourself and you said, how do I contribute and impact on my society? What is different that needs solution? That is why you went into agriculture. And that is what gave birth to people like Google, Microsoft, etc., who are now multi-millionaires because they were able to proffer solutions to the challenges of what is happening in their society. Now, having said that, we as AUC, how do we continue this conversation that you've started? Because this conversation is exactly my conversation that you have spoken. Maybe you don't know it. It's exactly what I think. It's exactly how I feel. How do I make people feel, push, become passionate? Because if the political will does not go with the socio-economic development, there will be no changes. But again, Africa, we don't need to give up. I know a story of a man who, because of the war, became an orphan, trained himself to primary, to secondary school, to high school. No godfather, no siblings, no mother, no father. Moved from that, became an intern, became an accountant, and has moved and moved and moved. And today, he's a minister. I'm talking about no other person but the minister of Sierra Leone seated here. Why have I used this story? Sometimes you don't get the support you think you should get from your government, and then you feel that hope is lost. Hope is not lost, because once there is life, then there is hope. You can go, they say when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Now, Walimu, one of our Pan-African leaders said, the gold and the diamonds and the oil that we need, they are not golds, they are not these diamonds, they are people, which is what all of you have capitalized on, the development of our human capacity. And that is the Agenda 2063, knowing fully well that we need to capacitate our big population in such a way that they can contribute and make the transformation that we want. And which transformation is not based on you being called a medical doctor, because if you're a medical doctor and you don't have people to treat, what have you gained? Nothing. And that is why you see yourself going into new areas. And it is very important you use that example. Because we live here and we go to the US. We read PhDs in things, but yet we go back and do LPN. We go and do 2 weeks, 3 weeks courses to become nurses. We don't mind cleaning the shit off people's body, because what matters is the money you get. Why can't we do it here in Africa? That is what she has done. She left her white-collar job to become an agriculturalist in order to be able to make money the way it ought to be made. But not only that, empowering others. And then, policy making is very, very trickish. Even if I want to push something, I don't need to make people feel insulted. You get my point? Are we together? Are you together? Are we together? Yes. You see, when ministers sit here, and then we refer to them as, you know what I'm talking about, now all of us heard. They would, instead of them listening to the good that we are speaking, they begin to react against it. So it is very essential that when we are communicating to them, we give respect to whom respect is due, and at the same time, we tell them that this is what we want. This is how these changes can be. So I join my voice to your voices to tell our policymakers and all our able ministers seated here that the ball is in your court to make or to mar Africa. The youth of Africa, they are in your hands. They are in my hands. And that is what I have been voted to do, advocacy. So they are in my hands, they are in your hands, and they are in all of us, each other's hands. Desmond Tutu said, Umbutu, I am because we are. Collective responsibility, collective vision to move the way forward. Africa can do it, like you said, like all of you have said, from these skills they've talked about, STEM education, ICT. You're speaking science too much more than I can comprehend. So it's not my field. That's why I cannot go down to what you were speaking. But STISA, the science technology innovation strategy for Africa, as aspiration number 1 speaks exactly what Dr. Temari is doing. Biotechnology, the recalibration of agriculture for the empowerment of the youth of Africa. But now we need money. You have the ideas, you need seedlings, you need good machineries to make agriculture the way it ought to go. That is why we have NEPAD. And NEPAD in the African Union is our development agency. And because of that, NEPAD has launched the Skills Initiative, what they call the Skills Initiative, to strengthen the occupational prospects of young people through grant funding, and technical support for skills development initiatives. Please, Google the African Union, go to NEPAD, and look for Skills Initiative. We have put a body there that can grant you a little bit of money to start these dreams that you have, that they become realities, so that the transformation of the Africa we want becomes us walking the talk and not killing the talk. Thank you.
Wow. I think you'll agree with me. Yes? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to make 1 or 2 comments concerning the mother of Africa here, talking about political will. For what I believe, the destiny of every young African should not be in the hands of any politician. You should have the passion it's a network, a collective effort. Let's say 20% of it has to come from the government side. 20% has to come from your family or civil society. And the bulk of it has to do with the individual. You should have the passion to succeed. In terms of policy implementation, government, you find out that as Africans, we never lack good ideas. We've never lacked good policies. We've never lacked good laws. We've never lacked good projects. The missing element has always been implementation. One may ask why? Corruption. I'll give an instance that has to do with my very country. In Sierra Leone, we took over governance like 5 months plus. The president said we should stop corruption. We should make a U-turn when it comes to corruption for us to move the other level. Today, we've launched the free quality education, which is now a right in Sierra Leone for every Sierra Leonean for pre-primary and secondary school education. It's free. We've not received a cent from IMF, ADB, from any donor. Because we've decided to block the loopholes, say no to corruption, we are moving forward. So in terms of policy, they are there. When you say no to corruption, just make sure everybody should be accountable, not only the government, even you, the UNDP, the AU, they should be accountable for project that has to do with youth. When you bring them to the table, be accountable, be transparent, then we'll make the impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if we've done our job here, there's many more questions and many more things that people want to say. I've gotten permission from the conference organizers for the session to run 15 minutes over, which it has, but what I'd like to do, particularly those of you there, is invite our panelists, if you can stay for a few minutes, so that after we close the panel, you can come approach the stage and have an opportunity to ask the questions that we didn't have time for. I'd like to thank the Commissioner. Thank you, Minister, for your comments. And I hope that the panel, as I said, has left you with a lot to think about and an opportunity to engage with the many passionate voices that were on the stage. So thank you to the fellow panelists as well. Thank you.